momentarily.
Oh, okay.
We're on.
Okay, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the training session of the Montclair Historic Preservation Commission meeting. A training session is necessary for all of our commission members because we are recipients of the CLG. As CLG is certified local government. And we've received a number of grants through that program. And one of the requirements is that we have commissioner training. So I'm very happy to see we have a full complement of all the commissioners tonight. We also have Mr. Stephen Smolin, who's going to be presenting. He's our HP consultant. And we have Ms. Janine Bauer, who is our attorney. So in tandem, they're going to present our training session, which will be on the review of applications for demolition of historic structures. And I just wanted to mention also, especially for the people that are viewing this at home, I was at the annual conference today for preservation, and Governor, our last governor, just signed a law into effect that all the commissioners of the HPC are going to be required to have training similar to what the planning board does and the zoning board, which I think is a great thing. That was the last thing on his desk I heard in December. So we also welcome members of the planning board. We invited the planning board. We have Councilman D'Amato here. And we'll leave, I'm sure, a few minutes at the end for questions. So I'm going to introduce Mr. Stephen Smolin now, and he will take over the floor. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Chair Bennett. And Janine will be handling a couple of the slides as well and interjecting throughout, because the Montclair demolition ordinance is a little complex, as we all know. So tonight we'll be talking about review of applications for demolition in Montclair. The agenda for the presentation that we're going to try and get through in just the next hour is talking about why this ordinance exists, what its foundation was, where it came from, what the jurisdiction is of the HPC in these types of applications, your scope, things that trigger this type of review we'll talk about. The contents of an application for demolition is part of this as well, and there's numerous requirements for that. I think an important section tonight will be the review criteria that the HPC is applying and the findings and report that you should generate. And if we have time, there are a couple, we'll call them landmark cases from all across the state related to demolition in historic districts. So the objectives of the training are to explain the goals and purpose behind the demolition ordinance, understand the role of not only the HPC but also the planning board or the zoning board and your administrative officer, talk about the different types of demolition applications that the ordinance has, the criteria, and then also how the HPC can build a clear record, which is really important, and confirm any type of conditions before you vote. So first we will start with the policy foundation. Your ordinance for demolition, like I said, is quite complex. It runs for about a dozen pages, and that's in addition to the 25 or 30 page historic preservation ordinance. It's very specific, and it was written, I think quite a bit of effort was put into developing this ordinance a couple of years ago. So we're going to distill this, but first starting with why this section even exists. The town council, when they adopted this ordinance, I think understood that the historic structures in Montclair play a really big part in the identity of Montclair, why people moved here, its character, not only historically, but just currently and where it's heading, and the stability of the town, and again, what makes it a really desirable place to live. Demolition is a very significant action in a town like Montclair. It's an absolute and permanent loss to the community when it occurs. The ordinance here establishes that demolition may be restricted or denied where criteria support the preservation of the existing building. So the jurisdiction of the HPC, and Janine, feel free to step in if I start saying anything wrong here, because a lot of this is legal based. HPCs in New Jersey, I think, can trace their formation back to the National Historic Preservation Act in the 60s. That's where we got the National Register of Historic Places. New Jersey followed that up a few years later with their own New Jersey Register of Historic Places Act. That's where we get the New Jersey Register of Historic Places. And then the municipal land use law in the 80s was amended to include a carve-out or an enabling ordinance for local historic preservation ordinances. So the Historic Preservation Commission, I think, sits at the nexus of a lot of different governmental bodies. Some volunteer, some of these are full-time positions. The HPC interacts with the governing body, who designates historic sites and districts by ordinance. They are the ones that ultimately can adopt design criteria or guidelines that the HPC can implement, and in doing so, they're supposed to be stating reasons. This is when they're designating a historic site or district. They're supposed to be stating reasons if that wasn't something that had been previously identified in your master plan. The HPC also interfaces with the Planning Board and the Board of Adjustment. The Planning Board, as we all know, is ultimately the one who prepares the historic preservation element of the master plan with input from the HPC. They review development subdivision, site plan applications, and are there to apply zoning, bulk, subdivision, and site development standards. The Board of Adjustment, on the other hand, is the first stop in an appeal to the HPC's decision, or the administrative officer as recommended by the HPC, and they typically are reviewing zoning variances for bulk, subdivision, and site plan standards, as well as specific types of variances. Lastly, the HPC interacts with your administrative officer, who I think in the case of Montclair is the zoning officer, and that's the person ultimately it's referring permit or demolition applications to the HPC for review, and the administrative officer is the one actually implementing what the HPC recommends as part of your review process. The construction code official, on the other hand, is primarily concerned with building and property maintenance codes, and is the one that is being essentially held up from issuing a demolition permit until the HPC's review is complete. So there's sort of a distinction there, I think. Maybe, Janine, if you want to talk about that, between what the administrative officer does versus the construction official in the types of applications the HPC reviews.
Can everybody hear me? Okay. It's exactly as Stephen said. He's doing a great job so far. But the administrative officer is really the key person, whether it's a zoning officer or it could be a lot of different people depending on how small your village is or how big your city is or townships in between, because that is the legal sort of execution person and the go-between between the applicant and the HPC. I'm not sure why the legislature arranged it that way to have an extra step. Maybe it's because HPCs were essentially new, but it would be like if the planning board had to issue its report to the administrative officer, or the zoning board had to issue its report to the zoning officer, then the zoning officer implements it. So that's the procedure we have to go through. But he or she or they do have to implement the decision on demo permits for that the HPC comes to. So it's just sort of an extra step there, but it's a very important step and one that that person needs to understand, as well as all of us need to understand, and you. And just like Stephen said, then there's an internal appeals process, which also doesn't happen with the other two boards. The applicant can take an appeal of a denial or an appeal of conditions to an approval, and that goes to the zoning board. And the transfer of that appeal happens again through the zoning officer. So maybe it was intended to be back in '85, some kind of check on, so we didn't go crazy or something like that, trying to preserve everything, but we do anyway.
So formally, in many cases, the HPC is providing a recommendation to that administrative officer, and it's really their decision that's being appealed to the Board of Adjustment in that scenario. If the Board of Adjustment's decision is to be appealed, which happened a couple times while I was on the Board of Adjustment in Hoboken, you're going to the Superior Court for that, and that's where that gets handled. So next we'll talk about...
Stephen, just to be clear,
yes.
it says that the HPC's role is to advise the administrative officer, but the vote that we take, though, is binding, correct?
Okay, it depends on how the ordinance is written. Ours is binding. But I just want to read, because it's kind of interesting. Section 111 of the Municipal Land Use Law is the section on permits. It's all permits, but demo permits are generally the permits that would come to us, but it could be other kinds of permits. It doesn't specify just demo permits. Reports on certain applications. If the zoning ordinance designates and regulates historic sites and districts pursuant to section blah, 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 the governing, which of course ours does, the governing body shall by ordinance provide for referral of applications for issuance of permits pertaining to historic sites or property in historic districts to the HPC for a written report on the application of the zoning ordinance provisions concerning historic preservation to any of those aspects of the change proposed, meaning change to the site or property within the district, which aspects were not already determined by an application for development by a municipal agency, meaning the zoning board or planning board. So if it was already determined, then that essentially deprives us of jurisdiction, but because applications are supposed to come here first, that shouldn't really ever happen. But nevertheless, the legislature provided for it if it were to happen. The Historic Preservation Commission shall submit its report either to the administrative officer or the planning board as specified by the ordinance. If the ordinance specifies the submission of the Historic Preservation Commission's report to the planning board shall report to the administrative officer. So it depends on the exact wording of the ordinance, but generally speaking, it's binding. It's not advisory like our advice to the planning board or zoning board on applications for development or whatever other kind of applications come before you all.
So next I'm going to talk about what properties are covered or subject to this demolition ordinance. So primarily it's any property located in a locally designated historic district, town center, Upper Montclair, etc., those types of districts. Anything within that, someone wants to demolish it, it's coming to HPC for a demolition review. In addition to that are locally designated historic sites, which are identified on the zoning map, and there's numerous of those in Montclair. And then lastly, in the ordinance it says properties which have been identified in the master plan with a documented historic survey filed with the State Historic Preservation Office. I think the Montclair website has the interactive map that we all use, and it's, I think, pretty simple to figure out whether or not you're subject, any particular property is subject to the demolition ordinance or anything else to do with the HPC from that website. Your historic preservation plan element, which I have an excerpt from on the right there, identifies many potential historic districts. This is the first step in formally designating a district, of course. So the way that the ordinance is written here is some of these districts or sites identified in the master plan are also looped into the demolition review. So there's a couple terms that are important to understand in the demolition ordinance. The first is total demolition. I think that's traditionally what people associate with this type of review. That's when you're dismantling more than 50% of the exterior walls or facade that are visible from the public right-of-way. That would be, there's an interesting quirk that's also cumulative to work done within a 5-year period. So you cannot just take down 49% of your house over a period of time and expect it to not be considered a total demolition. The total demolition permit.
Stephen, can I actually ask another question?
Sure.
So for the at least 50% of the exterior walls or publicly visible facade wall, we had an interesting case recently, as you know, can we include roof line in that calculation? It's unique.
I'd have to look at how that's defined, but there are definitely certain styles of house where roof may very well be more than half of what you're seeing from the
Yes.
street in the house. I'm not sure.
And it could be a unique roof design. Can we get clarification if that can be included in the calculation?
Sure.
Thank you.
The total demolition permit, which is ultimately what one would be receiving if the HPC approves a demolition, is a separate and distinct permit from any other type of permit one would need to seek as part of a project. And the ordinance is pretty specific on that to give the HPC really maximum authority to review the application. There is an exception to all this the demolition review, and that's if the fire or construction official thinks something is unsafe. So the different types of scenarios that trigger an application review, the most common is an application for a total demolition, more than 50% of the facade, is submitted to the construction official. Someone comes in to get a permit to take a building down. It's secondly would be any other type of permit application that the administrative officer in their review believes involves a total demolition. And then lastly would be development applications submitted to the planning or zoning board that would require total demolition or removal. Most recent example of that I think would be 580 Valley Road, for example, is in that type of category. So the contents of an application for total demolition in Montclair, I think, are based on the federal Section 106 review process. So I've done my best to kind of chart out on the left there what a federal undertaking, or say the federal government is putting a highway in or something and they're taking down a historic house. There's a certain type of review they need to go through, and it has different parts to that review. On the right is Montclair's demolition application requirements. So in Montclair, there needs to be a photographic record of the existing property. There needs to be a statement of the need and purpose for that demolition. Sometimes we receive applications where that's a paragraph. Sometimes we see applications where it runs on for 5 pages. An important facet of Montclair's ordinance is it's looking, like they do with the Section 106 process, for alternatives. The feasibility of alternatives to a demolition is something that Montclair would like to get the applicant on record talking about. Historic documentation, which involves a bit of legwork on the part of the applicant to do correctly. An archaeological study. I don't think I've seen a situation in Montclair where that went too far in terms of justifying the need or not need to demolish something. There needs to be a preservation plan with a potential for, I think, local nonprofits to be able to salvage parts of the building. There's cost estimates required, not only for potential rehabilitation, but also the demolition itself. And then ultimately the HPC gets to look at what is being proposed as a replacement structure. And that should really be the last thing considered during the course of a review. So the supplementary application in Montclair includes all those things I just went through. Anything to add on these, Janine? Because there is an ability for explicitly that for the HPC to waive several of these items, and I think also potentially more than that.
So you're all familiar with waivers. Waivers are a little more of an unusual thing for the HPC, but waivers function the same way for applications for development that come before the zoning board or planning board as they do at the HPC, and that is the applicant is essentially saying that there's a condition that's required for a complete application that doesn't make sense. I mean, the excuses are numerous. They could be anything, really. He may say it costs too much, it's burdensome, it doesn't make sense for this particular lot, all kinds of things. There's no potential for, anything significant archaeologically, and so on and so forth. And the standard by which you all decide waivers and we decide waivers is reasonableness under the municipal land use law. In other words, if the request for a waiver is reasonable in the majority's opinion, then you'll grant it. And if you don't think it's reasonable, you won't grant it. And that can be the subject of quite a bit of debate, as for instance it was at the Valley Street application, and opinions differed about that, but a vote was taken, and I think the waiver was granted. But that's the standard. So, it's committed to your discretion as a professional commissioner to decide whether you are going to demand that from the applicant, or you're going to say, yeah, I don't really need that in order to make a decision on this application. And that's why it's important to read the whole application, understand the completeness from the applicant's point of view versus the completeness from your point of view. Because if you think, even if you think it's sort of reasonable, but it's a block that you need to advance your decision, to sort of the end point, you may not think it's reasonable for that reason.
So I'm going to go back to the third component of the application, which is written documentation by a qualified historic preservation architect as defined in yada yada, estimated cost and timing of restoration. So there's multiple components to this one application item. This is the third application item again. The first component is the estimated cost and timing to restore or rehabilitate the existing building for reasonable use. The applicant is being asked to demonstrate what it would take essentially for them to continue to use whatever the structure is, if it's a shed, a garage, or their primary house, for a reasonable use. The second component of this requirement is evidence of good faith offers, not to sell it to someone else to demolish, but to either remove that structure and relocate it somewhere else, or to preserve, rehabilitate, and restore. Keep the existing building there and reasonably use it. And then the third component of this requirement is the applicant needs to provide a time frame. There might be a scenario where it could take 5 years for someone to restore a property for reasonable use, and that could become a consideration of the HPC, whereas sometimes it may just be 5 months. There's a lot of detail in the ordinance, because this can get kind of squirrely as to what reasonable and comparable prices would be, and there's different bases that the applicant can submit to substantiate those numbers. So next we're going to talk about the review criteria. So the applicant has submitted a complete total demolition application. They're before the HPC, and this is the type of stuff that you should be applying during a hearing. First and foremost is the historic significance criteria. This comes out of the National Register of Historic Places criteria. A through D is the property associated with an event of historic significance. Is the property associated with a person of historic significance, like maybe the Crane family here in Montclair? Is the property of very particular unique design and construction? And lastly, and probably least frequently, is there some sort of information potential that the property might have archaeologically? Typically is where that would come into play. Once that's established, you need to assess the existing building's historic integrity. There's the 7 criteria from the National Register to do that. They're listed there. I'm just going to move through that so we can get to the end here. And then the applicant, in preparing and submitting their application, really needs to choose a lane. They can go down both lanes, but they need to make sure they at least substantiate one of these pathways. The first relates to preservation of the existing building not being warranted. And this is based on it not being of historical architectural significance. Its existing use is no longer feasible. Its importance to the township is de minimis. It's not of a rare age or design or construction. It's just not a structure that warrants perpetuating its existence within Montclair's built environment. That's one pathway someone can choose. The second one, and maybe more interestingly, is that the preservation of that building imposes an undue burden or hardship on the applicant. It's such a pain in the neck to continue to maintain this house. I have a hardship. I can no longer do this, and I need to tear the building down and maybe not build anything new, or I'm building this, and this is why. This is more maybe technical, quantitative in nature, how this would be proved. This is where the structural soundness, like an engineer's report, would come into play. Economic feasibility is a big factor here for restoring it. And then people can also make an argument that the rehabilitation of the building is just not feasible under that pathway. Oh, great. Now I have them listed
Stephen,
in the next
can I ask
slides.
a question about the
Sure.
previous slide? If they go down one pathway or the other, for instance, if they go down the hardship pathway, we can assume that, they believe it's a historic, they can't use the historic structure is not warranted argument if they take path number 2. From a historic,
I'll go to Janine on that in a sec, but I'll say that a strong application could go down both pathways.
okay.
Because you have potential districts, I could see making sort of a inconsistent argument. In other words, we don't think this is historic based on the, wording in the survey, or I don't know, something like that. Otherwise, I would tend to say, applicants should probably be consistent if they want to persuade you. But there's nothing technically or legally preventing them from going down. Yeah,
all
both
out.
pathways.
Yeah,
But
okay.
but we've had applications, including recently, where people say, well, your language is not exactly perfect, and therefore I'm going to assert that the property is not historic. Whereas clearly, for properties that are not historic but they're just in the district, pathway 2 it would be the preferred pathway for them. They wouldn't bother with one.
When I write my reports after we receive these demolition applications, the first thing I typically need to figure out, if it's not explicit in what they've submitted, is which pathway they're attempting to go down, because then I'm looking at different parts of your ordinance to see whether or not that was substantiated. Before I get to the findings section next, I'll just mention that in the scenario where someone is picking up a building and putting it somewhere else in town or somewhere else in Essex County, there's a sort of distinct set of criteria for that situation, but I'm not going to go too far into that because it's somewhat rare now. So the findings and report that the HPC is ultimately producing as a result of a hearing on a total demolition application have a couple purposes. First is to establish a record of what was presented, what the deliberation was of the HPC. This is all in an effort to support the administrative officer's decision, especially in the event of appeal on a demolition denial, is what I'd say most likely to be appealed. I don't think people appeal approvals of demolition. The HPC, during the hearing, depending on which of the two pathways the applicant is going down, needs to analyze and essentially make findings on a couple different things. If someone is presenting an application where they've stated that the preservation of the existing building is not warranted, in order for the HPC to approve that, to endorse that thought, you need to make findings like that the existing building just isn't historically significant, or it's been renovated so many times over that it no longer possesses historic integrity. It's something that's not contributing meaningfully to the historic district or its streetscape, and the demolition is not going to result in an unacceptable loss of historic character to that immediate environment. In the other scenario, where someone is claiming that the preservation would impose an undue burden or hardship, that's where that quantitative evidence comes into play, that rehabilitation, relocation has been explored and for whatever reason just isn't feasible. And importantly, there should not be a case being made of some sort of hardship that the applicant created for themselves. Self-created hardship is not a reason to approve that type of demolition. And ultimately, your decision on an application for total demolition can be to approve it outright, to deny it, or of course approve it with conditions and to state those clearly on the record. The conditions should be very specific in those types of applications. Before I get to the couple case studies, where I'll turn most of that over to Janine, I'll just mention as well that your ordinance has a carve-out for low impact applications, and those qualify for expedited review, where in the opinion of the administrative officer, there's not going to be a significant adverse impact on the historic district. I think maybe like a shed far off in the back corner of the rear yard could be an example of that, and that has significantly smaller application requirements, and I believe is something that the administrative officer can kind of do just within the office, maybe in consultation with the chair. Okay, so these are a couple of the historic landmark cases that we've selected from across New Jersey over the past 2 or 3 decades. They all relate to demolition, and some of them, I think, paint a good picture of an HPC functioning correctly, and some of them have since been used to better inform HPCs in the future to not make the same mistakes again. Do you want to talk about the Jersey City case, Janine?
Sure. The Berardo case, Berardo versus Jersey City, 476 New Jersey Super 341, was decided by the lower court and then the appellate division. It was appealed. It's actually a case about the way Jersey City structured its ordinance, the function of essentially their sort of quasi-administrative officer and what they did wrong. And first I'm going to talk about a case called Newburgh versus Middletown, and that was what caused the New Jersey legislature to amend the municipal land use law in 1985 and create historic preservation commissions, give them authority to do all the things that they do in sections 107 to 112 of the municipal land use law. And that's because Middletown created an HPC. A lot of times back in those days, after New York City's example, they were called landmarks commissions, and sometimes they were called historic preservation commissions. And by the way, those are completely interchangeable terms. And they gave the meaning the governing body of Middletown, gave the HPC certain authority to do certain things and not do certain things. And when the developer of this, big farmland that was considered historic, along with the farmhouse and outbuildings, thought that the HPC had exceeded its authority under the MLUL, which there was no authority at the time, went directly to Superior Court. Superior Court said, and the Appellate Division said, yes, you're right. Only the legislature can give land use bodies, and HPC is a land use body, just like the Planning Board and Zoning Board, can give HPCs authority to do whatever they do, and not authority. In other words, it all has to be set forth in an ordinance, and the ordinance can't overstep the province that would otherwise be allowed by the legislature. So the legislature then took its cue and had to amend the municipal land use law to set forth what the HPCs could do and could not do. So everything stems from that. But the ruling in that case is HPCs have to stick to the municipal land use law. What the municipal land use law says we can do. If it's not in there, we can't do it. So what Jersey City did is they designated essentially a mini state historic preservation officer. You've all heard SHPO when somebody has any kind of public undertaking or something like that. It goes down to DEP, goes to the state historic preservation officer. We call that SHPO or SHPO. And this administrative person in the employ of Jersey City was making initial designations as to whether a property was historic or not, historically significant or not. Nope, that's not how it works. The designation is done by the governing body under Section 65.1 of the Municipal Land Use Law, or by the Planning Board in the historic preservation element with advice from, and sometimes just big technical reports from the HPC that we hope that the Planning Board adopts. Those are the two ways that a site is determined to be. So, this was a very qualified person, and, it was intended to be sort of a shortcut and a way of, moving applications along, but the court said it's not in the municipal land use law, therefore you can't do it that way. And that's really the purpose of this, although I love Stevens. I have never seen this house before, so I'm glad you put this in here.
Yeah,
this is the property.
Can I just ask, could you just explain what we're looking at? Because people
Yeah.
here might not know.
Yeah. Well, the house is, the bullet points, say everything. The house was not landmarked and not within within a district. So it wouldn't have been covered, it wouldn't have been protected, and this administrative person in the employ of Jersey City was designating it as historically significant, and that is not allowed. It has nothing to do with whether the house really was or wasn't, or sort of any of the underlying facts. It's procedural, and most of the things that arise really are procedural. So it keeps everybody in the proper sort of check and balance place.
So after the determination of significance, which is what the unelected bureaucrat was doing in Jersey City, that gets invalidated. A couple years later, recently, this property shows up at the Jersey City HPC, gets denied again. They go to the zoning board on appeal and gets denied again. So this property is still standing. It was all a bit of a mess. Procedurally, a big mess, this property, all vinyl sided. The second case is down the shore.
This was also a great case. You've all been down the shore and seen a lot of these life-saving stations, these very old, sometimes more than 100 years old, or even way older than that, life-saving stations. And this was one of those. And again, this is more factual than just procedural, but what essentially happened, the ordinance had one of these conditions that you had to show that you'd made, that you'd sought offers for, selling the property or moving the property or so on and so forth before it was going to be developed. The developer was
Pansini Custom Homes or something?
Yeah, Pansini Custom Design Associates. So it sounds like they're going to be building. And they sued City of Ocean and the construction code official, who was the administrative official in that town's ordinance. And what it actually came down to is that in determining fair market value of the comparable properties, the trial judge essentially averaged the comparable properties and took testimony and made the decision himself. And the appellate division said that the procedure he followed for determining comparable fair market value was incorrect. So, like I said, it's not entirely procedural. It's a substantive ruling, but again, it relates to exactly how you go about, and that's why it's very important to follow exactly what the ordinance says and what the municipal land use law says. So that went up on appeal, and the appellate division, like I said, struck down the trial judge's procedure for how he went about looking at that.
Here you say that preservation has been litigated. Is there in our ordinance, is there a mechanism for the public to appeal demolition?
New Jersey has a very liberal standing rule. What you're really asking about is what's called standing in law. And yes, the public would have to show the court why it has standing, a public citizen, so to speak, John Doe or whoever it is. But if the court decides that that person or group has standing, and a preservation group would have standing, because, like I said, New Jersey is very liberal on that point, yeah, they can intervene in the case, they can appeal the decision if they have standing. New Jersey's quite friendly to outsiders, asking for a second look kind of thing.
So this case is likely where the waiting period, the mechanism, if the HPC denies a request for a total demolition, where that 1-year waiting period would come from, I think.
There's a very important part of the municipal land use law that's very rarely used. It's Section 44, and it can be used by the planning board or the zoning board too, to impose a waiting period. Now, during that period, the planning board or zoning board or HPC has to make the developer whole, but generally that just means paying the taxes and whatever the carrying cost for the property. So it's not a very expensive thing. While that entity or some other entity, like a friend's entity or something, tries to move the property, get a new owner that'll, repair the property, whatever the fix seems to be in that particular situation. And you can do that for up to a year under Section 44. And you can do it for open spaces, parks, just a specified list of very few conditions in the municipal land use law, but one of them is historic sites. So that Section 44 waiting period applies to historic sites, and even though it's technically a taking, it's not been struck down, it's been held to be lawful, and it's been used successfully. So keep that in your, back pocket.
So if the HPC hears an application for demolition and you vote to deny it, the ordinance has a specific set of things for that person to do during a period of time. If they do them, they can come back to the administrative officer after a period of time and ultimately demolish their building. So unfortunately, when you deny a demolition application, it's not for eternity.
And what about the reverse or adverse? If the commission approves the demolition, does Section 44 come into play when?
I guess it's possible that would be hard, but if the demo permit were, the report was sent to the administrative officer and the administrative officer sent it to the zoning board, if somebody were to get it in front of the zoning board, I guess the zoning board could take an adverse position and say, let's invoke Section 44 and wait. But they'd have to get it before the zoning board, and I'm not sure that would be a situation where an outsider would be allowed to advance that. I'd have to think about that more.
Thanks.
The last one is from quite a while ago in Short Hills, and this I will let Janine talk more about, but I will tell you that this property is still standing today.
This is a great case, and this is really truly one of the precedents that matters in New Jersey. The owner sought to demolish a rear garage and wing to one of those big properties in Short Hills and construct a large new addition. The Milburn HPC didn't think much of the addition and how it was knit together with the property. This was in the Short Hills Historic Park District.
Short Hills Park.
Yeah. And so the Nadelsons took the Milburn HPC to court, and the HPC won only at the law division level, but this has been recited by many, many courts, including superior courts, the appellate division. I'm not sure about the Supreme Court. And what the case basically holds is that aesthetics are important. Aesthetics are what historic preservation is all about, aside from obviously significance and, you know, all the criteria A, B, C, and D and so forth under the National Historic Preservation Act. And the repository of discretion for the aesthetics of a project is the HPC when it comes to an historic site or a property within an historic district. So you can't be arbitrary about that. You know, it can't be your personal preference or something like that. And that's one of the reasons why we have criteria for, you know, there needs to be a knowledgeable local historic person. There needs to be an architect. There needs to be, you know, so on and so forth. You know, and other citizens, it can't just be like anybody the mayor likes. But that case, you know, just comes straight down, you know, no fooling around, and says that what they did is they went to court on the grounds of vagueness, and they said it's a federal and state constitutional right that we get to change our property. You know, you can't let this HPC, you know, decide based on aesthetics, you know, our property rights. And the court said, nope. That's not true in New Jersey. In New Jersey, we're going to let this board, as long as it acts reasonably and not arbitrarily, decide the aesthetics of your historic property.
Can you relate that back to at the start? You talked about 50% of the facade, and that was in the rear. So how does that relate to what we heard about demolition being facade related? Is it because it's a different town and different?
No, that's actually a very good question. So generally, the municipal land use law doesn't address that specifically, but generally, and if you think about it, it's only reasonable. Most ordinances say it has to be publicly visible from a street or something like that. What's the exact wording of the?
Yeah, visible from the public right-of-way.
Public right-of-way, okay, in this town. But generally, that's, you know, a couple words might be different, but generally, almost all towns adopt or cities adopt that wording. Now, you can get creative about that, but not too creative, because the right-of-way is the right-of-way.
So do they have a different ordinance in Milburn? Because that was in the back.
Well, no, it's really not in the back. It was visible, the wing was visible, the whole addition was visible.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I thought it was that.
yeah, yeah. Where the rub usually comes in is it's not visible because of all the landscaping. That doesn't count. Yeah. If it's really not visible because there's just so many trees and underbrush, doesn't count.
Just going back to Mike's question from earlier, total demolition in Montclair talks about more than 50% of the exterior walls of publicly visible facades. Partial demolition, however, talks about visible facades, exterior wall, and architectural element. So roof may come more into play in that.
Especially if it's a roof associated with a specific type of house, right?
For some reason, partial demolition seems broader than the definition of total demolition right now. Okay, so we have a few minutes left, and I think at this time we just want to open it up to general questions. As you can see, Montclair's demo ordinance is pretty complex. That was really just a nutshell or a quick take version of it. But I hope that if you didn't have time already to take a look at the homework or recommended readings that we sent around before, if there wasn't enough text in this presentation for you already, and just understand all the complexities that come with such a significant thing for both historic preservationists and homeowners when it comes to demolition.
Okay, so let's open it up to questions. Did anyone on the commission have questions? Scott?
Yeah, I had one question back to the, excuse me, the last case we were just talking about before you got to the slide. You had mentioned that the HPC didn't like the aesthetic of the planned renovation or whatever was going to happen. Did that play into a role? Like, they looked at what was going to be built after that wing was to be demolished and that garage was to be demolished, and they didn't like what that was going to look like, and that played in the role of their decision to deny that?
That wasn't the only thing. They didn't want the wing demolished either because
Right.
of the structure of the house. But I think in a much earlier slide, I think the important, and it's a subtle but important difference between, for instance, the National Historic Preservation Act and local ordinances. And a lot of developers, in my opinion, are confused about this, or Development Council are confused about this. They think that HPCs shouldn't be and can't be, some of them say, looking at the replacement and having that influence your decision. To a certain extent, that's true. But the way the feds handle it, and it's a much better way of wording it, is what is the effect of the undertaking? And the effect is technically different than the replacement. I forget what the word is in our ordinance, but sort of the replacement itself. So so if you can think about the idea of you're thinking about the effect of the demolition on sort of the whole streetscape or the whole scheme of the neighborhood or the zone plan or whatever it is, and that's more important than just looking at the specific building that's going up or even
Yeah.
the tooth gap, we call it, the fact that nothing is going up or something like that. But it is part of the effect, and therefore, in my view, although it shouldn't be a major portion, you shouldn't be denying something because you don't like the new replacement building, but it seems to me that it's part of the equation, and I feel confident that if, for instance, you decided something, along those lines, and I had to go to Superior Court and defend it, which is always my job. It's just to keep you out of trouble, and if you get in trouble, to try to win, that it's part of the equation, but it can't be the factor, so to speak.
Okay.
And that's why I like the way the feds use the word effect, as opposed to what New Jersey does or most towns do, here under our local ordinances, which is a little more focused on the actual replacement.
It could potentially positively affect it too, right? If what's being built is going to try to
Sure.
match or be historically
Yeah, absolutely.
in the aesthetic.
Absolutely.
And under our ordinance, can we require that we see the replacement?
I wouldn't advise that.
Okay.
I think the way it's, we had a lot of back and forth about and making some minor amendments to the demo ordinance. I don't think that happened, right?
We're going to revisit that. We
Yeah,
have,
yeah.
yes.
I think a tweak, a word or something might be, like I said, I like the word effect a lot. And plus, there's all the federal law on effect, so then you have those precedents for Superior Court judges to look to, because it's not like every day they're getting historic preservation cases. They're getting like divorce and crime and, stuff that they're used to.
So just to keep you up to date, we have worked on the amendments to the demolition ordinance. So there's a draft copy that just came out this week, and I just handed it to Stephen a couple of days ago. So Janine, you'll be getting it soon, and Janice Talley will be getting it, and then I think the second draft we'll all look at it. So this is something that we should look at.
Sure.
And I do know that Glen Ridge, and maybe you can illuminate this more, they have in their design guidelines or in their ordinance that the HPC actually looks at what is going to be they call it replacement of if something is demolished. So I just heard from Janine that that's not a good word to use, and I think effect is probably would be much stronger. So, but we can, that's certainly not within something that we have talked about, but maybe we need to do that.
The perfect example is when an addition is going on in a historic building, and we all know that's perfectly appropriate. And the question is how well it's knit together. There's guidelines, put out by the Secretary of Interior. It's not supposed to, mimic what it's supposed to be. It's have its own, sort of independent utility and so forth. Not sort of be a fake mimic of that period of the historic structure. So that's a perfect example of where an HPC might reject it based on aesthetics or something like that, but it really falls under the effect. They're not saying, oh, we don't like that, let's say the wing was coming down because it's structurally unsafe and it has to come down and everybody agrees. So that's the difference. Like I said, it's subtle, but it's very important, and it's a real difference. It's not, kind of like made up to get around, the law or something like that. And I think we could better explain that.
I think the Montclair ordinance is good, the demolition ordinance, because it's a framework that the HPC has to implement, a set of deliverables that the applicant needs to give you. Whereas in other towns, when they're looking at a demolition in a historic district, this is an HPC, for example, that doesn't have an ordinance this detailed related to demolition. Unfortunately, sometimes they just get dazzled by what's being proposed. That sometimes is presented first, and it's not until the end of the hearing someone mentions, by the way, we're demolishing a building that happens to be there, but don't worry about that because you like this other thing so much now.
Are there any other questions?
Totally unrelated.
Oh, well,
The library's getting a lot of money. Are you guys involved?
Yes.
yes, we are, yeah.
They got, was it
I'm so-
announced? Was it public knowledge? It's public knowledge?
Yes, it was in the
Oh,
Montclair local.
Okay.
Yes.
37 million or something like that, yeah.
Yes, so there's the beginning, yes, it's tax credits. So we're part of a few people on this board are part of the architectural selection committee. But I know there was a quote from the Montclair local from me to say that how important it was for the HPC to be involved to make sure, especially the Bellevue Avenue branch. So it's innovation versus restoration. So innovation down at the main branch and renovation up at Bellevue. Yeah, restoration, yeah.
I actually do have a question, which is, have there been appeals? I would ask the Board of Adjustment Vice Chair here, let's call it, if so, how those work, is it
I'm not,
I'm not aware of
Well,
any
the
since.
Park
Not in my
Street,
tenure.
that house where
What
we
was that one?
stopped
oh,
them
on
from
Union
demolishing.
Street.
I mean,
Union Street, yeah, they
Union
appealed.
That's right.
And that was demolition, and they weren't allowed to take it down. So the owner, that was the one where they took out the entire interior. They said it was asbestos. And the shell stood, but that owner then sold it, and it still stands. It's standing today.
Someone found a way to deal with it.
Yeah.
You know, with all the other excuses, someone did find a way to deal with it.
Any other does anybody else have any questions? No? All right, well, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. I think it was a great presentation. And Sanab, will this be on the website? Can we put
Yeah,
this on
We'll
the
put this
website? Okay.
specifically on the Montclair Historic Preservation website. It'll
Okay.
also be available on the Township YouTube channel.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. So why don't we just take a 5-minute break? I know Mr. Graham has to leave. Okay. Sorry. That's okay. Let's just take a 5-minute.
but that's another one that might be
Favorite
simpler just because it was not.
Court supervised.
Yeah, exactly, you know?
All right, commissioners, we're back. Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and thank you to the, for coming to the June 18th, 2026 Historic Preservation Commission meeting. This is a regular scheduled meeting of the HPC. Notice has been given in the Montclair Times, the Star Ledger, and the Herald News. A notice has also been posted in the hallway in City Hall. We are being broadcast on Channel 34, the Montclair Public Television channel, and we are also being live streamed on Montclair's own YouTube channel. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Yes. Chair Bennett.
Present.
Vice Chair Graham is excused. Mr. Rooney.
Here.
Mr. Reinitz.
Here.
Mr. Sweeney.
Yeah.
Mr. Giuliano.
Here.
Ms. Kane Levy.
Here.
Mr. Mixer.
Here.
Ms. Floyd.
Here.
Ms. Bauer.
Here.
And Mr. Smoller.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, and Zanab, our secretary, is here.
Yeah, I'm here as well. And then I have one change or one announcement for tonight. Application number 2024-12 for 16 Pleasant Avenue has been dismissed without prejudice.
Okay, thank you. So next order of business is the approval of minutes from May 21st, last month. Does anyone have any changes or addendum to the minutes? Okay, I have a few. All right, on page 3, line 80, that the award was given to the Rotary Club and not the Howe House. So if you would just strike that. And on the following page, 4, line 124, can we stop? He stated that the commission is viewed as an effective body. I would like to strike everything after that. It's redundant for what his remark was in the beginning. And then on line 131, if you could add, after newsletters and local media outlets, if you would add, please, the commission formed a communications subcommittee consisting of Kathleen Bennett, Zena Floyd, Scott Mixer, and Mike Graham. Okay, and and line 144, where it says the commission discussed whether it should formally issue a resolution or written opinion to the township council. I think it should say that the commission discussed that it should issue, which we haven't done yet. We'll do that for next month, okay? Does anyone have any other changes to that? Or would someone like to make a motion to approve the minutes as amended?
Motion to approve the minutes.
And second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
And Mr. Rooney is abstaining.
I'm abstaining, I was not here. Yeah.
Oh, and Mr. Okay, so Ms. Kane Levy, Mr. Rooney, and Mr. Sweeney are abstaining. Okay? Okay, great. Committee reports. The Communications Subcommittee, which I just announced, who was newly formed last month, we had a virtual meeting. Mike Graham, Ms. Floyd, and Mr. Mixer were on virtually with the Communications Director, Matthew Amarell, and we discussed a number of possible media outlets, and I think what we need to do for next month coming up is to go forward with the Instagram account. We did get coverage of the awards in the Montclair Local and TAP, which was great, but we still haven't, it still hasn't been updated on the website, the Montclair website. Yeah, and it wasn't updated, or nothing was seen, nothing was covered about the public input into the historic preservation element on the website. And I think for next month, that'll be the third meeting in July. We need to have some coverage for public input for HP element, because then the month of August, we're going to have to really work on it to get it together for the planning board. Okay, thanks. The Design Review Committee also met virtually on June 3rd to discuss revisions for the Bellevue Theater carport And I think, Zanab, you just sent out a notice, and we'll be meeting again. A new design was given to you, and we'll discuss that. And the demo ordinance review, that finally has been put together, and we'll be discussing that in more depth next month. Much of what Stephen spoke about today and Ms. Bauer spoke about today is something that's been going on, percolating for what's going on with the demolition review. So you'll be informed of that. I would think probably by August we'll be able to share a draft with the commissioners. All right. Do you have a question?
The Instagram page, I think the communication director in-house has to create that for us, I think. I can't remember.
He said he would. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. The content, we have to give him the content, and then he would do it.
Okay.
So, I think you're absolutely right. I'm just wondering how we go forward with that.
Yeah.
And maybe Zanab, you can contact him to see how we
Yeah.
can do that?
Yeah, I'll follow up on, we have to create the credentials on his end, so there's continuity in the account, just so it's not anyone's personal
Right.
email.
Those are the credentials from the municipality, and then
Right.
the content
The
is what.
content
So,
has to
but
come.
are we able to upload? Do you give us an email for us to be able to do that, or we need to send it to him and he,
I believe it should go through me, so any content you have, you can send it to me, and then I'll forward it to the communications director.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense. What do you think, Scott?
Yeah, we should talk about a schedule of that content, so we know,
Right.
like, in preparation, what we're planning to show.
Great.
That would be great. Maybe the first week of the month, so that it gets on before our meetings,
Absolutely.
and then we could see, publicize what's happening. Okay, that's great. So you'll follow up on that, Zanab?
Yes, I will.
And I believe the minor applications, we haven't had any since last month.
No, I don't think we have.
It's
We haven't
been-
approved anything yet.
We haven't moved anything. Okay. Next up is public comment. And this is not public comment for people that want to give comments about the master plan reexamination. That's the public input session. That'll be held, we'll listen to those after we look at our applications. So is there anybody that would like to speak, have some opinion? Public comment? No? Okay, public comment is closed. Old business, I don't think we have any old business. So we move forward now to application 2026-5, 627 Valley Road. Excellent, it's excellent printing. It is the wall-mounted signage for Clementina, which is up on the stage. Is there anyone here could you please come forward? Would you prefer to sit at the table or stand at the podium?
Yes.
Submitted on this PDF.
Right. Okay, sir, before you begin, could you please state your name, what's your connection with the project, and then our attorney will swear you in.
My name is Ahmad. I was the one who did the permits and installed the sign. And yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Ahmad, raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you'll present on this application to the commission tonight will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, do you just mind saying your last name as well?
Ahmad Abdogani.
Okay.
Oh. Sorry.
Need it for the minutes.
So, just for some history about this application became before the Minor Applications Committee. I guess the date was in February 26, 2026, and a resolution was created for that. So the resolution included a condition of approval stating that the sign shall be centered across the overall building facade rather than above the storefront entrance. Once the signage was installed, the commission realized that the signage was not in compliance with the resolution, as the sign is centered above the restaurant entrance rather than the entire facade. So the applicant has requested a review from the full Historic Preservation Commission for a revised signage plan. And in the meantime, you've added other things. This isn't what currently is up there, is there? Is it?
This is what is up there, yeah.
Oh, where is the 289? The address, or whatever the address
Is
is.
it on here?
That was a proposal for
That's-
what would be.
Okay, all right, so I just want to be clear that this is what is up there now,
Mm-hmm.
and right now, you're in violation of this, our signage ordinance and our resolution, which
That's
we...
fine, but my whole point is that I
Oh,
would-
wait, just a second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So, in the meantime, you're proposing a new design, which includes numbers over the doorway, and then I realized the other day that there's also a plaque that you've put up under the, on the pier between, if you look between E and M, there's a pier there. There's also a brass plaque that's been put up there with a C on it, and that would be considered a sign as well. So...
Not that I know. Maybe the owner himself did that, but that's the only thing I put up was that.
Okay,
I'll
so,
double check that out for you though, if he did put it up.
okay, so that should be part of the revised signage plan.
I didn't know that
Correct?
he did that, yeah. Yeah, it would. I'll tell him to remove that if anything. I didn't put that one up.
Okay, so the reason that when we gave you a condition, that meaning the minor applications minor applications committee, the condition to center the sign, Clementina, was over the entire facade, and that would make it more compatible with the historic district and what we recommend and approve in historic districts. So could you please, your revised plan is now this?
No, my revised plan is, first off, the reason why I wouldn't recommend putting the sign towards the whole front of the store is because there's apartment buildings on the left. The owner or whoever it is wouldn't want people to think this is included with the apartment. It's not a good thing for the city if you have random customers walking up the apartment building. So now for my revised one, I was looking to put an address right on top of the door of the left door and put 627. It could be the same size as the E or the M, but right on top of it saying 627 so people know that this is the apartment plaza and this is the restaurant. If you have them, please.
Okay, so may I ask why,
Like this.
so you're indicating that 627 indicates the apartment, but how does
Correct.
somebody like me who lives in, I don't know, Bloomfield and comes and thinks that that's what indicates that's an apartment?
But also, what indicates that people are not going to just walk randomly upstairs to the
But if I
apartment
come to a
building?
restaurant and I see 627 advertised, I might think as a general public, that's the restaurant entrance. I'm just trying to understand what
understand
your
too. But if you
rationale
want, I
is.
could put the name of, I could write apartment or whatever it is, so people know that this is separate than the actual storefront. That's all it is. It's just that when you censor it towards the whole building, they're gonna think that's an entrance and that's an entrance.
There's no
But in
difference.
reality, you're going upstairs to apartment building where people live as well, which is not good for the public as well, for the people who live there.
I'd like to ask a few questions. You said you got a permit to do this,
Yeah.
this way?
The
Permit
Clemente?
to install it the way it is?
The orange or the black?
The orange.
Yeah.
And you got the sign permit from where?
The only thing that I didn't do correct, which is now why I'm here to revise, is not center it to the whole building. But the sizing and everything was approved by the building, zoning, and historic.
You just put it in the wrong location.
What do you mean? I'm sorry.
You're saying you didn't center it on the building the way
That's
we-
all. But yeah, that's what I'm here
Yeah.
to say. Instead of me taking it down, I'll do a new permit for the 627 number and make a permit for that and put up a sign there. Because now the owner of the apartment buildings would like people to know that this is an existing
I
apartment.
just, so I understand, did you not understand what our decision was when we asked that it be centered on the building? Or who decided to put it where it is?
I guess I went I should have never listened more so with the business owner. When I got there to install it, he was being picky and telling me, please put it towards my building because this is not for me, the apartment building.
Okay,
So I ended up
so no
putting
one
it-
really looked at
No.
what we approved?
We did
That's what
look.
it
All
came
it is
down
is,
to.
honestly, all it is not even a foot or two to the left if you guys want it to be moved to the left or right. That's all it is from my mock-up that I got approved. It would only be not even a foot moving to the
I'm going
left.
to say it's going to go from the keystone to the keystone on the arch, pretty much. So it's going to move over that much, but that's okay. I'm just making the statement, no one really followed our suggestion.
Thank you. Any other statements?
You know, respectfully, your landlord is costing you a lot of money by having to shift it over, knowing that we had made certain requirements
True.
and having you disregard it for his needs. So that's something you might want to take into consideration, but it's not balanced.
But
you
my
know.
thing is, again, we understand
Okay,
about
so
the
let me
balance
finish what I was saying. So there's a lot of buildings in town where there's apartments upstairs
Okay.
and there's retail downstairs. The address can go in the center, it could go on the column, but when we're looking at this sign, it's very off-balanced. Very off-balanced. And putting the
Off-balance-
627, to me, just makes it even worse next to it. That's in my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah.
But if you're looking at it, his storefront is only from that window to that window. It's not the whole building.
So you're looking at it from a symmetrical standpoint, we're looking at it from an historical. So it's not aligned with the architectural dynamics of the building.
But it still doesn't follow to people to go upstairs to a different plaza that's not theirs to go into. And so right now, if I center the sign right in the middle, I would think that door might be an entrance and that door might be an exit. Or you could enter into the order
You might.
You might.
Majority of the architects I asked
I completely.
agreed with me, the
Right.
same
Yeah.
exact thing.
Yeah, well, it's got to be moved over.
Does
But
anyone?
what if he wants to put a sign next to the 627?
Well, we haven't gotten there yet, but let's just deal with the placement of this for the time being. Any other questions of the applicant?
Yeah, I have a question. Just, does the restaurant occupy both of the window area? So in effect, the sign is centered over the restaurant as an indicia of the entrance, and something on the left as a number is an indicia of the
Apartments.
building number.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's all it is. It's just so people can know this is an apartment and this is a restaurant, because the whole thing is not the restaurant. His restaurant is only on the right side.
Well, you've explained your rationale and why you didn't follow our resolution
It's also
and where the
about the-
placement should be.
It's also, if it's about the historic look and all, like how you're saying, how you care about the city looking, if I remove the letters, every place that there was a letter, there's gonna be holes into the building.
Which you'll have to repair.
We're gonna patch it up, it's still not gonna look like the exact look of how it used to be.
Well, what is that material?
Which
Is that
one?
wood? Is it
That-
mounted
no,
on
that's-
wood?
That's like aluminum. It's not wood.
Okay.
Okay. We saw this at the minor design.
Minor application.
Minor applications.
And it was in February.
And it came to us, and no one I don't remember anyone from the owner's side making any kind of,
No.
it was just sent to us to approve or disapprove,
Right.
right? Okay. No one on your side bothered to come before us and explain what you're trying to explain right now, okay?
You're right about that one. That's why I would
Yeah,
like to.
this is, I'm sorry for you. So, that was, we never get people coming before us to explain what they're doing, or we rarely get people, so, and now and then you didn't listen to what we said, and now you're saying, oh, whatever, so that's all I gotta say about that.
Who else has a comment?
I'll make a comment. It's clearly unacceptable without a number because it looks unbalanced. But adding something to the left above the doorway, I think is informative. I think it actually is beneficial, and I think it overcomes the lack of balance. Whether the 625 should be in black and those size letters, I don't have an opinion on that, but I think putting something up there does add information that's useful, and adds balance to make it look more appropriate. So those are my comments.
Okay, so before we, why don't, explain to us the backing board of where you've already mounted the letters. What is that back? You're saying it's aluminum?
Yeah,
And it
painted.
cannot be repaired? Aluminum.
You could like fill it up with, you could fill it up and then repaint on top, but you're still not.
Is
gonna
that
see-
new, is that part of the original facade?
Yeah, but the whole second, third floor was all rebuilt recently.
Is that signboard, could it be band wood? Is it,
It's more so aluminum, it's not a wood.
Oh.
Wood wouldn't have held up the letters.
well, I'm gonna, go ahead.
I'm
Carolyn.
gonna guess it's not original, that it got installed along the way, and it's some sort of bent metal
Yeah,
around something.
basically.
Yeah, so,
And I think it's just painted brown. That's
Yeah.
all it is.
okay, so the fact, when you get to it's a matter of cladding it again with some aluminum, painted aluminum. That's all that needs to happen, if it's really that bad in terms of the holes you made, to cover it.
Right, so cladding can be, that can be replay. Okay, Caroline?
Well, I think it's a little bit of a tricky condition because the symmetry of those two arches is not reflected in the storefronts that the restaurant is
Mhm.
within. So it's a tricky situation. And I actually do think that the addition of the numbers adds balance, as Carrie said. So I could approve it as proposed.
What is the address of the restaurant?
627.
What's the address of the
Oh, that.
apartment?
That I will double check, but that was just a rendering of exactly just showing the idea of me putting the numbers for the apartment
Well, if you're
upstairs.
putting 627 above the apartments, that's telling
That
me
was my
the
point.
apartments.
My understanding is that the address for the whole building is 627 to 629, and the restaurant is 629.
And the restaurant's 629.
Yeah, and so the apartment building is 627.
Well, that's confusing.
So you can't put the 627 somewhere above the pane over the door?
It wouldn't show, because it goes in.
Okay.
Well, actually, if you're at street level or walking down the sidewalk, you don't really look up to see the number of the
You see it on the-
apartments. You'd see it more clearly on the door, if it was on the door, as opposed to being on that sign band. But I think what we need to address is the placement. It's a new application. It's in place. Whether or not
We're looking at a new application here?
Right.
Okay, so we're voting on it.
Right, correct? Am I correct, Ms. Bauer? Yes, so it's a new application. So we're not, it's public knowledge that it's in violation of what we approved. And you understand that, we could have instances of this all over in the historic district. So it's not to our benefit to approve it as it was changed. Because we looked at this to look to see that it should be centered over on the entire building. So this is the application that's being presented now. Whether it's, we accept it or not, I think that's in consideration. With the number over the door, we've heard the rationale. There is also another sign that, you see that pier in the center, there's also a circular bronze plate. Do you have that picture, Zanab? Did you put it on the, that's up there now, which would constitute a sign. So I don't know how, in terms of the sign ordinance, if that's, how much percentage of, the sign.
Right, right.
That might be against,
I think we looked at, what?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think they should move it to here. It should be centered on this arch. And then it goes with that storefront. There's the door, Clementina.
While she's looking, I have a question for you. Might as well keep it. Since we're voting on this as a new application, what is the number what is it made out of, the 627?
Same thing the sign is made out of. It will be aluminum on the front, aluminum on the side. It's basically a 3D channel letter.
For the numbers, 627, okay.
And the color is not precise. It could be any color. It could be white, orange, black,
Oh.
whatever it is.
But that size?
That size should be
Mhm.
only on top of that.
is it illuminated?
No, none of these are.
Okay. There's no other lights on that facade, are there? Yeah. The Clementina will be lit up, though?
No.
No, it won't?
No, nothing is lighted.
They're offset.
Yeah, he wanted it as a 3D look, so I made it as if it's a channel letter, but there's no lights inside of it.
Mm-hmm.
So it just gives it a 3D look off of the wall, not like a sticker if you did it flat.
So at night, it's hard to see the sign, right?
Yeah.
I'm just wondering,
That's how most of
the logic
historical-
here.
Yeah,
so,
there's a lot of, I've done mashed, I've done Obago, I've done a lot of historical ones. Some of them allow halo lit, which is light from the back, or no lights at all.
Mhm.
Yes.
These retroactive approvals are always tricky. Are there other open violations related to what was approved versus what's been built?
No, it's the placement of the placement of the lettering.
You may want to look at the doors that were installed and the storefront, specifically the profile of the mullion between the transom and the display window. At least what I'm seeing from a picture that says it's from a week ago does not look like at all what had been approved.
Oh.
So
Thank you.
there might be more here.
When is your photograph date from?
It's a week ago, and it was posted, I believe, by this tenant on Google. I'm just using that. I'm seeing also that the existing residential door on the north side there has a 627 mounted above the windows that don't, the lights on the
Already
door.
has one? It already
Yeah.
has a number? Oh,
Put that up for temporary.
But
Pardon me?
the door does not look like what was depicted in the drawings approved.
I didn't do the doors.
pardon me?
I didn't do the doors.
If this were a separate commercial business, you'd have a name over here, and you'd have a name over here.
Is this the actual sign?
No.
So maybe we should have a gun.
No. I think what it is, this is the exit sign, it's probably the same. It's not bad looking, but it's weird.
I think this is not the separate.
Okay, do we open this? We have,
Except we don't know. We put it under there. The number.
Is this actually centered over the storefront? It looks like it's like 6 inches long.
it's probably the shape of the last letter or something.
I think something's going wrong.
I think, well, the E looks like it's right in the middle, right? Pretty much.
Kind of.
Yeah, but
Let me ask.
I look at this as a symmetrical building,
Mhm.
I guess, and such. Maybe this is, I'd be interested in what Steven says about this.
I don't think he cares.
How about this being the same size letter, same color?
Stephen, I'd like to get your, on the sign, yeah. From a, from your experience or from your judgment from a historical point, we're looking at it in terms of trying to keep things symmetrical and trying to make it,
I mean,
the streetscape a certain
my gut
way.
instinct is to center the sign on the overall building, which is what illustratively was included with this application last November. And there were no concerns raised at that time because it
Right.
looked right.
Okay, so this is what, thank you, Zanab. This is the additional plaque that's been added, which is also constitutes a sign.
I never knew he put that up. I could tell him to take that down.
Okay, but that needs, so what I would ask you to do is, I feel very strong, it's a new application. I think 627 over the doorway is something that some of my fellow commissioners have say that it balances out the Clementina, but the placement of it is not what we originally approved. And I'm trying to look at this as a new application, but with the different moving parts of this, I think you really need to you need to come back to us, and you need to put the addition, put that in. And with that, does that constitute a percentage of the signage that's allowed on?
My initial guess would be that that complies with zoning, but I will have the zoning officer double check.
But we need to check it out.
Yeah,
That's why we
So
can't.
It should be like a full sign plan that includes your proposed revision, and then if you want to include this, just have the dimensions of it.
If anything, I'll tell him to put that inside, because I didn't make that either. I
Okay.
can't just make a permit on something I
Yeah,
didn't
you
make.
could get approval for it in this new application, so it's up to you. But if you do include it on the sign, just give us some dimensions.
And I would ask that you look at what that sign ban is made of, because that can be, if it's cladding, it just has to be reclad. Or is it wood, or is it limestone? Wood, I don't, or is it aluminum clad wood?
Seam right there.
So, I think the signage is not distinct, or it's not, the placement, I don't think it's been thought out well for us to make a determination. Okay? So please, have a conversation with the owner or whoever, the restaurant people, and consider what we said during our minor applications meeting, and put together a signage plan that actually, a proposed signage plan that actually looks more intentional of what you want to really put on this storefront, okay?
Basically make a new plan with Clementina on it and the 627.
No, the plan contains the whole thing. So
Yeah,
you need
for
to,
the whole
the whole package, so we want to be able to look at it and see what's there and whether or not we approve it or not. So at that point, the rondel that's there, the C, should be included in the plan so that we're able to look at it, and we have to check with the zoning officer to make sure that is compliant with our signage ordinance. But I think you really need to go back and think about the reason we said to center it over the entire facade is because this is very important in the Upper Montclair Historic District. And I know that this has gotten great press. I have a reservation for next week. So, I'm really hoping that we could come to some kind of a conclusion that will be satisfactory to everybody. Okay? And the other thing is, for 627, you need to, proportionately in terms of the size of the letters, you need to indicate that on this sign bed. Because I looked at this and I think it's totally out of proportion. To Clementina, the letters are very fine and delicate, and that's just too...
Right. It's the wrong
I could do that. I can make it similar to that same font. And
Yeah,
even the
but
sizing.
maybe, reduce it. And then make sure that there's no number on this door now. Okay, because if there is, you really can't have two numbers. And also, I would think about it from a business point of view. that having 627 on the top, as I said in my opening statement, is confusing to a customer that comes. I mean, they know it's 62 something, but how would I know that that's the entrance? I mean, you could put flower pots on either side, and that would be the entrance to the restaurant. You know, there's other things to indicate that it's the main entrance, not centering Clementina over the door.
But still, it's not his area for him to put a sign to center it towards the whole building if this whole side is not his. It's an apartment going upstairs. If it was
No, but
towards
the restaurant is here.
the two windows,
Yeah,
but
the
the
two
whole left
windows are the
side is
restaurant.
not his.
This is not his?
No, I'm basically more so
Well,
centering it
Clementina's not going to be over that.
for where? But it's not going to be centered symmetrically or however you're saying to the building, to the storefront. It's going to be more so towards the building, which he doesn't have the whole building.
Right, so.
Pan Am has their, what, is it called Pan Am Building anymore?
No.
There were different offices in there. There's one big sign on the building, so.
Pan Am.
That's people's preference.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you for, and we look forward to, put the package all together, either come before us next month, or we could look at it at minor applications again. Okay,
So
which would
re-upload
be,
the application?
Yeah, so resubmit the sign plan. You can talk to me next week, and we'll work on that. Our next meeting will be July 16th at 7:30. If you prefer to have a full conversation with the commission, or we could review it on our virtual meeting as well as part of the committee. It's up
Sounds
to
good.
you.
Thank you.
Thank
okay,
you.
we look forward
Take care.
to it. All right,
Okay.
good night. Okay.
I like the sign. I like the sign. Yeah, I'm not crazy about the color, because it doesn't seem to reflect Clementine. It's just fine. This is all about the.
Okay, our next order of business is,
She's not on. Is she? Here we go.
what's my agenda?
Here.
Thank you. Our next order of business is application 2026-1334 Godfrey Road. This is total demolition of a detached garage. Is somebody here to speak to this application? Great. If you would come forward and kindly have a seat. Yes, then you could. Okay. So before I give an introduction to the project, if you would just identify yourselves and your relationship to the project, please?
Yeah, I'm Ryan Hill. I'm the owner, along with my wife, Joanne.
Okay.
Yeah.
If the green button's on.
There it is. Do we have to hold it down? Nope?
No.
Okay. My name is Christy DiBartolo, Mindful Architecture, architect of record.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Bauer will swear you in?
Yes, correct. It's D as in dog, I, B as in boy, ARTOLO. Yes. Yes.
Thank you. So the subject property is a 7,500 square foot lot located on the south side of Godfrey Road. The lot is slightly trapezoidal in shape. The property is developed with a single-family dwelling and a detached garage located at the rear of the lot. Vehicular access to the detached garage is provided via a shared driveway located along Adjournment Road, serving as both the subject property and the adjoining property at 32 Godfrey Road. The proposal is, the applicant proposes a total demolition of the detached garage on the subject property. The existing garage is not presently functional for vehicle parking. If the demolition is approved, the applicant proposes to replace the garage and locate it in the same area as the existing structure. The new garage will have one bay for car parking and I believe that's a typo, it should be main door? It's not man door, is it?
It very well could be man door, yeah.
Oh, it could be man door. Oh, okay. And will be used for parking and storage. The garage will match the finishings and design of the dwelling. And we just heard a whole presentation about demolition, and you have a very complete demolition package here. So the submission requirements for total demolition, I'm going to let Mr. Smolin go over those. But if you could just explain the project with the pictures that are up now on the screen, that would be great.
Sure thing. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, is it okay if I give a little background?
Yes, sure.
Yeah, so my wife and I and our two kids have lived at this address, 34 Godfrey, since 2017. Love it here in Montclair. And when we bought the house, we obviously knew the garage was in rough shape, but it like the walls are kind of bowed. Anytime it rains, water comes in like freely into the garage. Like it's in really, really bad shape, as you've seen in the pictures. And so now our kids are getting older, and we also want to, they're taking up more space, and we could use more space for them, and so we want to make it into a like recreational space for them as well. And so we don't even park in the garage. We park on the, there's two spots right in front of it, as you can sort of see here. Those are our cars right there. And the main reason for that is it's in really bad shape, and like we can't even, there's a man door there right now that we can't even close because I think the bowing of the walls has just made it impossible. So we considered doing a full renovation at first, but then as we sort of looked at that, it seemed that would be more expensive, or at least as expensive, and as completely replacing it. And so with this proposal, what we would do is bring it into compliance, for one, because it's a little too close to I think it's a 6-foot setback that's required. This would actually meet that. The existing structure is not quite 6 feet off the line. And it could really benefit from a new foundation, and that's part of the plan as well. And so we want to rebuild it to remedy those issues and create a better space for our kids. So I think that's all I had, yeah. So anyways, thank you for considering this request. We appreciate it.
Do I need to be sworn in? I'm sorry, not sworn in, qualified. As an expert? I am, yes. It is good, in good standing and current. I have. I'm actually, I have been accepted, yes. Okay, thanks. So if I could go through my testimony really quick,
Yes.
and then I'll certainly get to the photographs here. So my clients contacted me to rebuild their garage. They do need more interior living space and intend to use this garage as such, with the ability to park a car there if need be. It is heavily structurally damaged and poses a threat of collapse. Some of the walls have actually been moved completely off of the foundation. And there has been a temporary post provided at the center of the garage to shore it up until a better fix can be found. There's major evidence of water damage and deterioration at the foundation. New building codes require garages to be anchored into the foundation. Because the condition of the existing curb, it would be extremely challenging to properly anchor it into the wood framing into this curb as is required by the code. I have reviewed both the Montclair Historic Preservation Commission's letter dated June 12th, 2026, and the Architectural Heritage Consultant's letter dated May 27th, 2026. Based on the Architectural Heritage Consultant's letter, comment number 3, preservation of the subject structure is not warranted. It is a utilitarian structure and is secondary in its contributions to the character of the district. The removal and reconstruction of this building would not adversely affect the district or public good. Comment number 4 is related to hardships. The retention of the structure would cause an undue hardship in not only the cost of the project, as it would be challenging to fix all of the deficiencies of this existing structure, but more importantly, it would not guarantee the safety of structures which usually result in new building code compliance. Furthermore, the plans proposed that the building is moved slightly on the site, which would bring it into zoning setback requirements. So if we want to take a look at the photographs here, you can see on the right side, this is a right-of-way that goes through the neighbor's property. That's their fence on the right, and the garage is offset in the background there. Okay, this is just looking to the left side of the garage. The garage is on the right side of the screen there. It's just another view from Edgemont Road. As we go to the interior of the space, you can see that the curb is significantly deteriorated. This is again all water damage. The sill itself, which is this wood horizontal piece right here, in some places is not attached to the concrete curb at all. This is the, if you want to call it a post, that is temporarily holding up the whole thing right now. Again, significant structural damage here. So before, before anything further happens, we want to address it before somebody gets hurt. All right, and there's just more evidence of the water damage. You can see, obviously, this is in very rough shape. Okay. So with all of these things considered, we ask that the board grant us the demo permit.
Thank you. Thank you. So before Mr. Smolin tells us about the requirements and what you've included in your application, I'm going to ask the commissioners if they have any questions of these witnesses.
I have one question at the moment. This is a garage, but it looks like you're proposing a different use for it?
That's correct.
So what was the testimony about the cars again?
So it will be designed in such a way that if in the future they ever do want to convert it back to a complete garage, then we could take down the wall that's delineated where their storage is.
Okay.
And we're keeping that garage door on that side.
Okay, thank you.
And you're not requesting a waiver from setback? You're going to come into compliance?
That's correct.
And is the footprint going to be larger or smaller, or?
It actually gets reduced a little bit. So my anticipation is that the net impervious coverage will actually be decreased on the site.
Any other questions? Anybody in the audience have questions? No. Okay, so Mr. Smolin, could you go over the requirements and the application that they submitted? And
Sure. So the existing house at 34 Godfrey Road was built around 1912. It is located in the Oakcroft Potential Historic District, which was originally developed beginning in 1906 by Aaron Godfrey. Much of the development in that area wrapped up by 1946. So the subject property was built right in the middle of that period of significance. I think the garage was likely built at the same time or shortly after the primary house. And I think this is an example of an application that is really, I think, pursuing both pathways that we discussed earlier, preservation not being warranted, and then preservation also potentially imposing an undue burden or hardship on the applicant. Before we get to that, though, I just want to flag, I believe, 3 waivers that the applicant is either requesting or not providing information on. Overall, I think this is fine, but I'm just flagging that the preservation feasibility and alternative documentation was not provided, so there was no discussion about a sale of the garage or relocating it, which wouldn't even really be possible to do, but that wasn't included. I think that's reasonable to say that's not necessary. There was no archaeological investigation here. I think that's also reasonable to say that's not necessary, given that there's an intensive level architectural survey done of this neighborhood, and not once was anything about archaeological potential mentioned. And then lastly, there was no salvage plan mentioned, and I think that's also completely reasonable to waive as well, given that the garage really doesn't presently have any, what I would say are character-defining architectural elements, which could be salvaged. So that brings me to the evaluation of integrity. I'd say overall is medium for this garage right now. It does continue to reflect its original purpose as a garage. It was purpose-built as an early garage. It is somewhat a much more simplified version of the main house's architecture. It doesn't have like the jerkin head roofs or anything like that. So then getting to the two different pathways, again, the first being that the preservation is not warranted. I think the applicant has proved that in much of their testimony tonight. And a survey of the neighborhood, as I mentioned, was done just 6 or 7 years ago by Margaret, who's quite detailed in her surveys. And I'll point out that there's no mention of this garage in that survey of the property. It's not visible from Godfrey Street. You have to go around the corner, but there's no mention of the garage. And I think that's with reason, given that it's not contributing much to this sense of historical importance of the primary house, which is definitely significant and definitely documented in great detail in that survey. So then the second pathway related to hardship criteria and imposing, and the preservation of the garage, imposing a burden or hardship on the applicant. A few weeks ago, I visited the garage. I was in it for a very brief time. I honestly did not want to stay in it for too long. And it is certainly, as the applicant testified tonight, in a state of pretty significant deterioration. I think potentially part of it may have caught on fire at some point. And I think the structural report goes into more detail on that, but it's teetering right now, I think is the shortest way to say that. So overall, my recommendation here is that the applicant has adequately substantiated the need to demolish the existing structure, and the proposed structure, if I could just touch on that, is somewhat simple. I think few people will even know that this garage is missing and that a new structure is built, which I think is a good thing. It means it's a successful project or addition to the historic district, and I think overall that both the demolition and the new structure should be approved.
Thank you. So I'd like just a little bit of discussion of what you're proposing to build there. And first of all, is the new garage doors that will be functional, and you're just going to not use it for what you're watching TV or something, right?
Correct, it will be functional, yes.
And what about the doors and the windows? What type of doors and windows are you planning to?
So the current proposal is just to do an Anderson 400 series or so, which has a vinyl cladding on the outside that can be wood grain. If the board so deems necessary, we can upgrade that to more of a standard wood.
I'll let you discuss that. Any other questions about the proposed?
Oh. The one thing about the existing garage that I thought was interesting were the eaves, and there's a profile board. Is that something that you could recreate in the new roof line?
It's certainly something that we've discussed to a point.
I think cost is the question, from our standpoint anyways, cost is the question, and whether that would drive up the cost at all, because we're about at the max of our budget as it goes right now. But we can for sure go back.
Yeah, there's different ways of doing that. You don't have to scallop the ends. Even just the rafter tails gives it the character that it has here. So
Yeah.
I think that's...
I think the scrolling of the existing, elements there is I mean, it doesn't necessarily match the main house, so the main house just has the conventional ones, to your point, so.
Oh, it has just square rafter tails, yeah. I guess that was one of my comments about looking at what's being proposed, is I don't know what the house looks like. So, you know.
And there was I think, Stephen's report, you're proposing a hip roof, not a hip roof, just a plain gable as opposed to a hipped roof?
Yes, that's correct for now, yes.
Okay. But you could still put those type of plain,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right.
We certainly understand from a historic preservation standpoint that, you know, cost is not always the top priority.
Right.
And, you know, we want to respect that.
Well, I think the view from the street, even though it's behind the house, the view from the street, you would see those eaves that come out.
On the gable end, you mean?
What's the siding on this?
The gable end is this side. The siding would be wood plank siding.
Wood plank
painted,
siding?
Yeah, to match.
Okay, if you did a hip roof, you'd save those triangles on both sides of the gables in terms of cost of siding.
Right.
So it would, you know, you could, I'll get into suggestions later, but that's just a comment. And then you could get the same rafter tails wrapping around the whole house.
Any other comments or questions? So these would be suggestions, right? They're not conditions to demolition.
Right.
They're recommendations. We will vote now on whether or not for the demolition, and then it'll be with recommendations, not
Right.
conditions.
Right.
Okay.
This does not come back to us for
No.
the design of this garage.
No.
You have to vote on the waivers too, but you can condition
First three
the
waivers.
approval.
Oh, with approval of the 3 waivers.
Right.
Well, the
Yeah.
conditions on the demo permit is a different subject than the waivers, but you need to have a separate vote on the waivers.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, we could do that first, and then we'll just do that first, and then we'll do the demolition. Correct?
Yeah, that's fine. I'm just saying, and I'm responding to your comment, you can condition the permit.
Okay.
Okay.
Public comment.
Yes, any public comment? Okay, seeing none, then we'll do the first waiver. No, we'll do the 3 waivers together. And Janine, how would you phrase that?
Someone should make a motion finding if you want to do them together, the waivers reasonable and completely granted.
Okay, so who would like to?
I move that the 3 waivers, A, B, and C, under application waivers are reasonable and the waivers should be approved.
I believe it's for submission requirement C, E, and F.
Right. So we have a vote? Or
I'll second.
second, and then we'll have a vote. Will you call the vote?
So this is to approve waivers for submission requirements C, E, and F. Chair Bennett,
Yes.
Mr. Rooney,
Yes.
Mr. Reimnitz,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney,
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Approved.
Mr. Giuliano,
Yes.
Ms. Kane Levy,
Yes.
Mr. Mixer,
Yes.
Ms. Floyd.
Yes.
All right. So
Okay.
waivers are approved.
Okay, and then the next motion would be to approve the demolition of the garage. So it's
With
something.
conditions.
With recommendations.
Recommendations.
With
She didn't
recommendations.
say conditions.
Right, okay, I thought,
Oh,
I just
those are the
heard we could do
recommendations.
conditions.
Approve demolition of the garage with conditions, and we just voted on the condition. Okay,
You may if you wish.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. So
I'm sorry, what's the condition?
it's the waivers.
Waivers.
Oh, okay.
Just voted.
No, there's some confusion.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just make sure your mic.
You could condition your demolition permit with any condition that's reasonable with respect to, the roof line, the design, anything that you've been discussing in your comments.
Can we make the condition that they return to this body to present a new design, or to present, or to get approval for what they build?
It's a property in the historic district, so, yes.
It's a potential.
Well, you treat that as an historic district potential.
Right.
All right, well, that makes sense. So because it's in a historic district, that we're asking the applicant to return with a revised architectural design.
But are these recommendations or conditions?
Well, conditions.
But, okay, but I thought that the property wasn't even considered like historical into surveys and that it was demolitioned. I mean, do we need to have them come back with conditions if the property in itself was based on Mr. Spoon's?
Is it a potential historic district?
Right,
Is that-
So
in
overall-
without the demolition, they could by right build a garage without HPC's.
Just because it's in the potential?
So the potential historic district with the survey means that it's subject to the demolition approval, but anything that they build outside of that wouldn't technically come here unless they're seeking a
Right.
variance, and that would be an advisory review.
Okay, and there's no variance because they're coming into compliance.
Right, yeah.
So,
Could you explain it?
You're
I thought
back in the
application
recommendation.
was simply to demolish the garage. Isn't
Right.
that the application?
the application
Yeah.
is to
So-
demolish.
No.
Our approval motion should be to, motion B, approve the total demolition of the garage.
But we may have an opinion about what's being built, and we may have the right to approve demolition with the idea they come back and present again the garage.
I'm okay with that, but I
It-
think
that,
right now,
The planner-
structural report,
I think that's a recommendation.
the structural
That's an
report,
advisory.
That was
Like
my-
the same thing with the swim school, like we provided then advisory recommendations that then moved on to the planning board, but they weren't binding,
Right.
right?
but
It's a
we're not
demolition.
making any recommendations to any other board here.
Right,
No.
it was just, to the applicant.
To the applicant. So I'm confused. Can we make conditions for the approval?
No, because
Okay.
the
Okay, well,
planners corrected me,
Okay.
only because it's a potential
Potential
district.
historic district.
Yeah,
They,
it
they
was local.
have the right to build whatever they're building.
Okay.
So you're making recommendations to them.
Okay, so the motion on board will be that the demolition be approved with recommendations. And the recommendations would be that it's wood siding, the windows, functional garage door that can be used after, for subsequent use, and also the change in the roof style. Okay, so those are four.
And I would recommend, I don't believe it costs that much money to do like the rafter tails.
Oh, and the rafter
or to
tails.
change it to a hip roof. Would simulated divided light windows as opposed to Anderson vinyl clad would be a preferable suggestion. There you go. Those are my recommendations.
So now we have six recommendations. Do you have those enough?
I have 4 of them. Wood siding, changing the roof style to include the rafter tails, or those?
Well, changing the roof style to a hip roof,
Okay, to hip roof.
including the rafter tails.
Rafter tails is number 3, and then installing simulated divided light windows instead of the vinyl clad Anderson.
Right.
And so then there's a 5th and a 6th that I missed.
A garage door that's
Okay,
functional.
Garage door functional.
And what was number 6?
Wood siding?
Siding? Thank you. Okay. Oh,
Okay.
I thought you covered that.
Yeah.
Okay, so will someone make a motion to approve the demolition of this garage with the recommendations that we've just listed?
Moved.
Second.
I'll second it.
Okay, so Zina, would you kindly
Yes.
call the roll?
And this is a vote to approve the demolition. Chair Bennett,
Yes.
Mr. Rooney,
Yes.
Mr. Reimnitz,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Giuliano,
Yes.
Ms. Kane Levy,
Yes.
Mr. Mixer,
Yes.
Ms. Floyd.
Yes.
All right, it is approved.
Thank you so much.
Good luck.
Good luck.
It looks like a good project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. I can write the resolution for this one too. I'll send it to you for review, just to make sure everything's okay.
Oh, yeah, I get it. So what's wrong with the actual district? Otherwise, we talk about go back to, we can recommend all they want, but they don't have to do it.
I have hip roof rafter tabs. They divided my functional door, wood siding. They said they're doing it, I know.
All right, next thing on our agenda is, it will be now public input onto the master plan reexamination that we are looking at. We will also have another session at our next meeting in July, which will be July 16th. So is there anyone in the audience that would like to come up and present their ideas, their thoughts, their recommendations for what can be included or revised in our master plan revision, which we will be working on this summer and hopefully get it done by early fall. So then it goes to the planning board, and the planning board will have a chance to read it and approve it.
For people, say, watching online, where would they find this master plan in case they want to read it, look at it,
Oh,
comment on it? Where would
That's
they
on
find
our
it?
website, on
Okay.
the municipality website under historic preservation. You can look and find that.
Okay.
And you can also send a letter to email to Zanab, because we will be examining other things within the master plan, and we'll be discussing it as a commission. So, yes, would you like to come forward?
Just a question, you referred to the master plan, are you talking about the report in 2016?
You know what, I can't hear you. Can you
Mind
just,
coming to the mic?
Oh, okay. When you're talking about the master plan you just referred to, are you talking
Yes.
about
This-
the 2016 report?
yes, the
Okay.
2016 report that we received a CLG grant for, and that was written for the Township of Montclair. Every 7 to 10 years, the state requires an updating of the master plan, and so the planning board is working on their section of it, the circulation, whatever that's called, but from the planning board, and then we have to provide a revision that the planning board then updates. Are you familiar with this document?
Yeah, I read it.
Okay.
What is your overall?
Do you mind just coming to the mic, please?
Maybe introduce
And
yourself.
then
Yes.
press,
Prior
just,
meetings, I don't have the contact, so what is your overall approach for the next plan?
So you're familiar with the current, I'm going to hold up my
The
well-read.
2016.
Right, the 2016.
Yes, I read that.
Right.
I'm just asking, what's the approach for the next one?
Well, the information that's in here, most of it is it's current. It goes into a lot of detail of historic preservation within the township. It lists all the ordinances, all the laws. It gives definitions of the different historic districts, because there's 3 different types of historic districts. It pulls out individual local landmarks. There is also a section of proposed historic districts. You might have heard us refer to those proposed historic districts. There are some people in town that are looking to create more, additional proposed historic districts. it's really a wealth of information. So we're not setting out to rewrite it, we're setting out to revise it.
To update it.
And update
Yeah,
it.
Okay, no, I understand it. So what's the philosophy behind, what you're doing here in terms of historic preservation? I'm a homeowner, and I'm on the list for the potential preservation list, and I'm very concerned about new ordinances and other burdensome regulations that are going to affect me as a homeowner and other homeowners in our town. We're all, worried about affordability. I heard you speak to the other business owner or business person and the homeowners about, what you would like them to do in terms of design, et cetera. And I just want to know what the overall philosophy will be if you're concerned about affordability and not imposing burdensome regulations on homeowners, if that's something that you'll be taking into account.
Well, I think that's a fair question. And I think that the HPC was created in 1996, and we have a number of different reasons why this commission was created. And as somebody testified, or I think Mr. Smolin, we deal with the aesthetics of a neighborhood or a local district. So we're the people that really give, I'm a historic preservationist, architects. We're the people that give advice. Sometimes it's bound by ordinance, and sometimes it's not. So you just heard the discussion between recommendations as opposed to conditions. So it's a recommendation as opposed to a condition. The people before you came up wanted to take their garage down. It's falling down. I don't think we're unreasonable in the questions we asked, and I don't think we're unreasonable in the decision that was made. And we gave really sound, good advice to somebody who wants to build a new structure and wants to blend in with the historic character.
Yeah, I get it, and you're all experts in your areas. I really appreciate that. But I think that, the homeowners who are taking responsibility for their homes have to insure it, have to maintain it, and care about the, aesthetics of their property, have their own views of how to keep up their properties. And I just wonder, your role in imposing your views on homeowners and into very particular details about maintaining homes. And I am very concerned about my particular house being included on a historic list. Will I have a say in whether it gets included or not?
Yes.
Because
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Can
it's all
I say
written out.
something just quickly?
Yeah,
That's
but
right.
it's all included in this document. So,
It-
but go ahead,
It is,
Scott.
but I think this goes back to something that we've talked about on this panel a number of times, is there's a public misconception of sort of what this body does. And I think we're trying to improve that from the perspective of communication, which we've newly formed a committee to talk about what historic preservation means in this town and how we can communicate what we're doing, and in and around what the revision and public input is for the master plan. But just as a theory, no one here is imposing anything. Things that come before this commission are typically, referred to us for the reason of its ability. It sits within the historic district or something like that that says, hey, this applicant is asking for this specific thing. Is it, in your opinion, subject to what you guys actually can oversee and ultimately decide on? Your private home in this town, and most people do live in this town, and we all have old homes as well. We want the best thing for those homes, but of course, your affordability, no one's going to make an imposing statement that you ultimately have to change your home or do something like that without your input, right? And so there are no private homes no districts in this town that are subject to the historic preservation, correct?
No, yes, you're correct. The
Correct.
districts are commercial districts.
And for that to occur, there is a certain percentage of the homeowners in that district that would have to vote for that approval.
Exactly.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be.
It's a whole process.
It's not per home, it's like per area, so
the homeowners in the area could agree to become bound by, as
Yeah.
a historic area.
Correct. Yep.
I'll just add, the reexamination report isn't actively changing the element at this point. So the commission is thinking of recommendations for when it will be updated. The state requires every 10 years that a reexamination report be issued to the planning board, who then can choose to make the updates.
Okay, no, I read the prior report's recommendations and what was high priority, mid,
Right.
medium, and low priority. And, you know, some of the high priority items I, you know, was concerned about because they could affect how I can maintain my home or make renovations to it. And I just ask that all of you really consider the impact on homeowners on imposing your views on how they can change their homes. Because what your recommendations do are impose requirements, and they will cost money for homeowners to maintain or renovate their homes in a way that maybe they don't agree with you on. So I know you all are experts in your field, and but you know, for somebody, a homeowner, to come here, have an architect paid by the hour, they have to explain every little thing that they did or are recommending. I mean.
You live in a community here.
Right.
It's not just you, by the way. It's a community, it's a neighborhood, it's how people feel about their neighborhood, and so on. We get individual rights and your ownership and all that, and I think
Are you an elected official?
I think, no. No, it's
So-
all volunteer here. A lot of time and effort put, okay?
So the other thing too, you know, when you purchase a home, you know, depending on where you're buying it here in Montclair, I mean, historically, this has been a very well-received community in terms of architectural history. So the continuity is important. You know, I mean, we make the recommendations based on your area and whether the property was surveyed to be historical. I mean, you could be living in a home that one of our presidents lived in, you know, and you want to knock it down and, you know, do something that's completely ultra-modern, and then we lose what makes Montclair so valuable in and of itself. So our recommendations are strong, you know, and are advisable, but ultimately, at the end of the day, we do also understand that you have to be able to afford to continue to keep your home, but we also want to make sure that it's staying within the historical concept that originated in our town.
Can I just ask again, for a home to be put on a historic list by you, does the homeowner have a consent right over that designation?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Okay. Yes.
If you, how long have you lived in town?
20 years?
Okay, so do you remember Oakcroft? That Oakcroft which is the section just south of Anderson Park. That's a very significant neighborhood, as it were. And how many homes were in there? 120, 110?
Something like that.
And if 33% of homeowners disagree with it being designated a local historic district, then it just ends. It's a proposed,
You're saying it has to be voted on by the group, but I'm asking, like, if an individual homeowner doesn't want it to be designated as an individual.
well, you're part of the, you're part of it.
But there are homes on the list in that report. There are different lists, right? One is like an area, and then there's another list for historic places, like individual addresses.
Well, those are landmark, yeah, there's 35, 36, so those.
Not public.
But is your house one of those?
No, not yet, but it's on like a list of potential historic homes, and I'm wondering, like, can it become?
Potential historic district.
Like the pink areas.
Okay, well, if you're not, if you're in a potential historic district, we've really tried, since I've been on this commission, to do outreach to community members, to homeowners. We do a survey your home, learn your home's history in cooperation with the library and the Montclair History Center. We're really here to celebrate the architectural heritage and integrity of the community.
Could I also just get your name for the record?
Oh, Susanna Sue, S-U-H. Okay, well, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you, have a good evening.
Okay, is anyone else here that would like to, yes, please come forward. And if you could just identify yourself.
Yes. Good evening, MJ Weldon. I submitted the idea of Fieldstone for a potential historic district. And I submitted a package. Well, not a package. I shouldn't call it that. I just submitted some ideas, and I don't know if you've seen them, if you have questions for me, or if you want me to tell you a little bit about the neighborhood.
So I've asked Zainab to put them up so we can view it on the screen. And then if you very briefly go into a little bit of detail about the area and the significance, because the architect you have is significant,
Yes.
that you're researching.
So I'm researching Arthur Ramhurst. I actually live in his home. That's kind of how I got involved in this. Fieldstone is a upper northeast tract. It was developed in the late 1920s, early 1930s. It comprises of LaSalle, Marquette, and Elizabeth. And what's unique about this is it was designed, the homes, the streetscape, the landscape, all under the supervising architect, and that was Arthur E. Ramhurst. There are 5 different kinds of home styles in this collection that were curated: Tudor, Colonial, Georgian. The paper said that the first Cape Cod in Montclair was in this neighborhood, and English farmhouse.
Could you advance it so we could see some? We have to get you a button, Zainab, so you don't have to keep getting up.
The first time I went into this neighborhood, I was not aware of Ramhurst. I just went and experienced the neighborhood myself, and I was struck by the charm of the neighborhood. I was also struck by the landscaping. There is a stunning mature tree canopy there, which recently there have been some taken down, and some people in the neighborhood are very upset about, they want to preserve that beautiful historic mature canopy. So this neighborhood is special, I think worthy of consideration, because it was designed as a whole. The homes, the collections, the styles of the homes, the supervising architect. It was heavily advertised, and when you read the advertisements, I've put all of them together for you. This neighborhood was promoting, these ads were promoting Montclair as much as Fieldstone, and it was really developed as a neighborhood for young families. The school went up right nearby it. Transportation was rerouted to service this neighborhood. I read that you could bring in your own architect, but they had to work under the supervision of the supervising architect, Arthur Ramhurst. And it was publicized that first there were 4 exhibition homes that were widely visited. And then it was noted that Ramhurst would design 12 of the homes. And actually from my research, I think he's done more like 13 or 15 of the homes. So there's the first tranche of homes in the development from the late 1920s to the early 1930s. And then there was a second wave, and I'm still researching this, under what was called Fieldstone Village, and I don't think it was under the original developers. And then there were some later fill-ins that happened in the 80s. But this neighborhood has retained the original integrity of design, not only in the homes, but also in the landscape and the streetscape.
Have you reached out to any of the other homeowners about this in terms of their view and opinion of?
I didn't do that, but I have been in touch. I started an Instagram account to make the public record of Ramhurst's work, and I did a lot on Fieldstone, and some residents had contacted me, and I've been providing information to them on their houses. I recently got involved with the, I guess, the neighborhood planner or leader regarding the tree situation to try and help provide some historical information to help preserve the trees. So I am in touch with them and would, help throughout this process as well with the neighborhood.
Thank you, Sedona.
Thank you.
May I ask a process question while I'm up here?
Sure.
Ms. Bennett, you were very, very clear about comment in the beginning, but my brain was thinking comments came at the end. So I'm wondering, is there an opportunity after business is closed if we can revisit comments? And if I could make a comment?
That would be to open up public comment again, correct? Yeah.
I apologize.
No, that's okay. Well, I think you've done a really good job of researching this, and we'll take this under consideration and if you've also given us a little map of the street, the triangle, I think, that was at the very beginning.
Yes, it's all dead-ended.
Mhm.
It's and there's plenty of documentation how the developers really fought to preserve the dead-end condition of the neighborhood. I'd also mention that there was I don't want to say fight, but there was a case with the public utility because the plan was for the utilities to run on the rear of all the properties so that you would have the beautiful tree-lined streets. And the utility said, no, we'll do it our way. And the developers fought and won, and that's part of why it's really a magical kind of neighborhood.
Oh, well, again, thank you for all your research.
Thank you for the opportunity to present.
Is there anyone else for public comment? Not public comment, information on, public comment on the revision of the master plan? Okay, so we'll close that, and then we'll open up public comment again. So, would you come forward then? And sorry, he didn't have to go sit down. Okay.
That's all right.
This is the big. Okay.
It's about
since
that
the
one there.
demolition of the motor branch. After that, I was disappointed in myself that I hadn't done enough research on Amherst to be able to share with the commission just how impactful he is in the town. I found that I found an article in the Glen Ridge paper that by 1935 he had been in practice for 9 years.
How many?
9 years.
Okay.
And completed almost 350 commissions. So
within Montclair or Montclair Glen Ridge, the surrounding?
In the Montclair area.
Okay.
But what I found is most of his work is in Montclair. And then he practiced in Montclair until his death in 1962.
Right.
And the motor branch was his last known work.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm just going to read. I prepared a comment, if I may. So some of you might know that following the demolition decision, I undertook a salvage effort to see whether significant architectural elements of the building might be preserved before demolition. Part of that effort, I contacted the Society for Commercial Archaeology, the nation's oldest organization devoted to the study and preservation of 20th century commercial architecture. After reviewing the building and its history, the president of the society, Brian Gallagher, provided a letter recommending preservation of the building itself rather than salvage of individual elements. I wanted to share that letter with the Commission because it represents the considered opinion of a nationally recognized organization that was not part of the record at the time of the demolition hearing. I also want to share two contemporaneous newspaper articles documenting the opening of the motor branch and the emergence of drive-in banking in Montclair. What I found particularly striking is that these articles show how the building was received at the time. The motor branch was presented as a welcome addition to Upper Montclair, and in the words of the Montclair Times, a brightening influence on the business district. The historical record suggests the building was embraced as a symbol of progress and modernization and regarded as an important investment in the future of Upper Montclair. I understand that the Commission has already acted on the demolition application. My purpose tonight is not to revisit that decision, but rather to reinforce the historical importance of the building and to respectfully encourage that any documentation undertaken prior to the demolition be completed to a thorough and professional standard so that an accurate record of this resource is preserved for future researchers and residents.
Thank you. And it's my understanding that that documentation hasn't been completed yet, correct?
No, we have not received anything.
And do you know when that will occur? Well, you don't have a magic ball.
No, I don't know. My guess would be they're waiting for the planning board approval before they move forward with demolition, but
okay,
that's just a guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, yes, it's truly unfortunate that we did not have this information. This was voted on for demolition, I believe, in December that we voted on that.
November.
Yeah. So, and I would just like to say, Ramhurst, I commend you for doing the research on him. And it's amazing how we have these architects, these local architects like Nelson and a few others that are now people are looking more closely at, and it's just an amazing discovery. So thank you, and I hope you share this with other people, especially the History Center, because they're doing documentation on local architects, and possibly the planning board when I don't know what the next step is with them. I know that it's ongoing.
Yes.
So, but thank you very much.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
And it's on the public record now, so thank you.
I would also say, given what happened with the motor branch, that really did inspire me to dig in and create this public record of Ramhurst's work. Not only his work, but his life in Montclair. I mean, he was very, very active civically and socially. He actually helped write a lot of current day zones. He was an advocate for apartment housing and affordable housing and density, and you would probably be shocked to know how many apartment buildings apartment buildings and garden apartments that he's designed in town.
Do you know of a few? Can you give us a few addresses that?
The Midland he did. He did 160 Gordonhurst, the garden apartments there.
Oh, right.
I'd be very happy. I haven't had a chance to put together my full list because while I've been researching, I've also been publishing stories, properties on an Instagram account, trying to, in parallel, get the public record out. But I'd be very happy to share with you. When I started my research, I was given a list about 12 properties. I'm over 100. And like I said, that article said that just in the 9-year period, there were almost 350 commissions. And today, I was in the files, and I found 15 new properties in just a drawer and a half.
Amazing.
So I think there's a lot more.
He's
out there,
clearly
obviously.
tapping on your shoulder.
I think so.
Come on, let's keep going.
Well, he knows where to find me.
That's right.
Okay.
That's what's nice about historical components. Yeah, thanks.
So let's see. If there's no other business, I don't think so.
I actually have some input.
Oh,
to the master plan seems appropriate. I wanted to bring to everyone's attention that a case that was decided, Black Ridge versus City of Long Branch, last year may have some potential to assist this board and all boards because it sort of removed the causal nexus between payments that developers in redevelopment zones make and improvements in the redevelopment zone. So for instance, the developer whose payment was approved in Long Branch, it was used for a senior center that was not actually in the redevelopment zone. And this area of law, I know some of you are experienced like I am, and some of you are newer at this, but this subject of what developers can do and what townships can exact from developers has gone, full circle just in the period of time that I've been practicing, which is unfortunately a very long time now. But nevertheless, we're back to a place where townships can exact money and other things from developers for approvals. It seems shocking, but it's true now. And this has, been approved by the superior courts, not just the trial division. So because we have all these potential districts, and because I personally find it very confusing, I don't have any other city or township that I recommend that has quote-unquote potential districts. I think that one of the things that you should talk to your elected officials about, your governing body, is when they have, because this will certainly, I'm sure that they've been addressed on this subject by their council, when they have redevelopment zones or redevelopment projects and they are thinking about requesting some kind of project or assistance or, money, outright money, from developers, that one of the things that they could fund is the remaining work that needs to be done to turn these potential districts into actual districts, under which you could impose conditions instead of just have recommendations. So I thought of that while this conversation, the whole conversation, including the training, was going on. And I think you should think about that very carefully because I don't know how long this portion of this, circle will last, but it's probably not going to last that long. Let's call it 10 years or 15 years, but in the scheme of redevelopment, that's not a long time.
And the case is Black Ridge versus Long Branch?
Black Ridge versus City of Long Branch.
Okay.
It's a very interesting case. I don't know, some of you may remember when, the condition would be, we need a new fire truck, and so everybody got a new fire truck, or we need an addition on our library, so maybe you could contribute to that, or, very sort of public things. And this was a public building, but still, at least I think it was a public building, the senior center. But the bottom line is the Supreme Court, or rather the appellate division, seems to have completely removed the idea that there needs to be what used to be a very strict causal nexus to any improvement that was being made.
Can you send that to Zanab, how we could find that?
Yeah, sure.
The case
Sure.
So,
And I just want to point out one other thing. This is not the case under the municipal land use law. This is only for redevelopment projects under
Right.
the redevelopment law, okay?
Got it.
Under the municipal land use law, Section 42 controls that, and there has to be a very close nexus, and that, the reigning case there, and I don't remember the name of it, but it was a township in Somerset County, and they asked the developer to contribute to their growing road system, because this was when, back probably in the 80s or something, when Somerset County was still growing very rapidly. It's still growing, but you know what I'm saying. And the developer went along with it, but only to a certain extent, And so there was litigation over the scope of what the exaction would be to fund the road improvements off-site. And the Superior Court said, oh, no, there has to be a very close causal nexus between anything that you're going to ask a developer to fund, and it can't go off-site unless it's directly related to that development. You know, it could be like the catch basin, you know, off-site, but all the stormwater is going to that catch basin. I mean, that's how closely connected it has to be. So there's now a great divergence between the local redevelopment law and the municipal land use law. And so if you have redevelopment projects, you need to be talking to your elected officials about things that could, you know, benefit the historic preservation in Montclair and the Historic Preservation Commission and so on and so forth.
Okay, well, thank you, Janine.
You're welcome.
Great.
Any other business? No? Would someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All right, it's 9:20, we have.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so I hope to see everybody at our next meeting, which is July 16th.
I won't be here.
Where are you?
I'm going to Canada.